When most of us swim, dive, or even take a boat ride in the Great Lakes, we seldom think about the history that lies below. In truth, much of Michigan's history lies well preserved below the waterline because our ancient lakes were so much more shallow than they are today. The ancient shorelines of those days are often now miles into the Great Lakes. Great Lakes researcher Luke Clyburn tells us how we can find out more about Michigan's history by looking underwater.
I think the Great Lakes really covers up the history for this part of the world. I think it's underneath our shorelines that we'll find what really took place here 7,000 years ago. When we look at the world history, they look at the Americas as not really having much to offer. But the work that we're doing, both on the ancient shorelines, the work that we're doing with the copper culture that took place in Michigan, I think underneath the waters we'll find that Michigan, or this part of the world, has a lot of history that's not known. You know, for years I traveled the Great Lakes without ever giving thought to the fact that the lake levels would have been different. Once I realized that the changes were there, and we really started looking, there's so much yet to be discovered underneath and look at these old shorelines. The forests help us to put actual dates. We're able to look at something and say, okay, a tree was growing on this particular location 7,649 years ago, plus or minus 5 years, and look at the weather patterns because of the work that can be determined out of those stumps. But it's really the types of people that have been living here. We look along our shorelines now, but this is the shoreline where history would have existed. They would have existed, in some cases, 2 or 3 miles out in the lake. So much of the work that we do is from a ship, and we're out where we have to go miles. But you can actually go into straits very close to St. Ignace, very close to Mackinac Island. You've got shorelines that come in right next to shore, so people can dive and dive down. Once they're aware that tree stumps were growing, they start looking for tree stumps. I think a lot of people swim right over a tree stump, but it never means a thing to them until all of a sudden there's a purpose for that tree stump being there, and they say, wow, this is neat.